Nietzsche, the rebel philosopher who changed everything. And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. Friedrich Nietzsche. Imagine, a man who dared to say that God is dead, that morality is a lie, and that true greatness comes from suffering. A man who lived alone, loved without being loved back, and slowly descended into madness, all while changing the very foundation of modern thought. This is the story of Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who walked the tightrope between genius and insanity, and never looked back. Chapter 1. The Fragile Genius. Early Life and Illness. Friedrich Nietzsche was born on October 15, 1844, in Rücken, a small village in Prussia. From the very beginning, life carved his path with suffering. His father, a Lutheran pastor, died of a brain ailment when Friedrich was just 5 years old. Soon after, his younger brother passed away too. Surrounded by mourning women, his mother, grandmother, and 2 aunts, Nietzsche was raised in an atmosphere of grief and strict piety. From a young age, Nietzsche showed remarkable brilliance. By the age of 10, he was already composing poetry and music. At 14, he earned a scholarship to the elite Schulpforte, a boarding school known for shaping intellectual elites. There, he was immersed in classical literature, language, and philosophy. But even as his mind sharpened, his body began to betray him. Persistent migraines, digestive issues, and deteriorating eyesight haunted him throughout his life. Despite his frailty, Nietzsche was accepted into the University of Bonn, and later Leipzig, where he studied philology, the study of classical languages and texts. At just 24 years old, he was appointed a professor at the University of Basel in Switzerland, an extraordinary achievement. But Nietzsche was not destined for a conventional academic path. His body weakened further, his eyesight failed, the constant pain became unbearable. After just 10 years, he resigned from his post and chose a life of solitude, wandering from town to town, living in rented rooms, writing alone, and battling his demons with a pen. Chapter 2. A philosopher. Without a home after resigning from his post at the University of Basel, Friedrich Nietzsche became a wandering philosopher, a man without a home, a title, or steady companionship. His life now followed a rhythm of movement, solitude, and feverish writing. He traveled through Switzerland, Italy, and the French Riviera, often living in tiny rented rooms, scribbling his thoughts with trembling hands as his health continued to worsen. Nietzsche existed on a razor's edge, mentally sharp, but physically frail. His vision was nearly gone. His migraines were so severe they left him bedridden for days. Yet during these periods of near collapse, he poured his mind onto the page. He published book after book, many of which the world either ignored or ridiculed. His first major work, The Birth of Tragedy, 1872, argued that Greek tragedy was not just entertainment, but a sacred dance between two forces, the rational, Apollonian, and the wild, chaotic Dionysian. To Nietzsche, true art was born from the tension between reason and madness. But the book was poorly received by academics who found it bizarre and unscientific. His former mentor, the respected philologist Wilamowitz, attacked the book publicly. Nietzsche's academic career, already fragile, was effectively over. Still, Nietzsche pressed forward. He broke away from traditional philosophy and religion, seeking instead to philosophize with a hammer, to test and shatter conventional beliefs. His middle works, including Human, All Too Human, Daybreak, and The Gay Science, were filled with aphorisms, short, explosive insights about morality, truth, power, and the absurdity of human existence. During this period, Nietzsche also severed his close relationship with Richard Wagner, the famous composer and once his intellectual hero. Wagner had grown increasingly nationalistic, anti-Semitic, and religious, traits Nietzsche abhorred. The breakup devastated him, both personally and philosophically. He had lost his greatest influence and friend. Now truly alone, Nietzsche embraced his fate. He called himself a free spirit, someone unchained from institutions, ideologies, and comfort. He wasn't writing for fame. He wasn't trying to be understood in his time. He was writing for the future, for the people he called the philosophers of the dawn. He wrote, "I know my fate. One day my name will be associated, with something tremendous, a crisis like no other on Earth, the deepest collision of conscience. He was right. But before the world recognized him, he would have to plunge even deeper into the abyss. Chapter 3. God is Dead. The Most Dangerous Idea. 1882. Friedrich Nietzsche unleashed one of the most explosive ideas in Western philosophy, an idea that would ignite revolutions in thought, art, psychology, and even politics. In his book, The Gay Science, he wrote, "God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him." But what did he mean? Nietzsche wasn't celebrating the death of God like an atheist provocateur. He was diagnosing a civilization-wide illness. The belief systems that had grounded Western society, Christianity, morality, metaphysics, were losing their power. Science, rationality, and secularism had begun replacing religious faith. Yet people had not replaced the function that belief once served. Without God, Nietzsche believed, humanity stood at a terrifying crossroads. What were we doing when we unchained this earth from its sun? Do we not hear anything yet of the noise of the gravediggers who are burying God? Do we not smell anything yet of God's decomposition? In short, Nietzsche believed the modern world was spiritually adrift, and most people didn't even realize it yet. This wasn't just about religion. It was about meaning itself. Without a higher power to tell us what is right or wrong, what is noble or base, how should we live? Most people, he feared, would respond with nihilism, a belief that life is meaningless, morality is arbitrary, and nothing truly matters. Nietzsche hated nihilism, but he also believed that to move forward, we had to go through it. Destroy the false idols. Abandon inherited beliefs. Burn down the decaying cathedral of tradition. Only then could something new rise. This is when he introduced one of his most powerful ideas, the concept of the Übermensch, or the Overman. The Overman is not a superhero. He is a symbol of human evolution, a person who creates their own values, lives creatively, and embraces life's suffering without seeking comfort in illusions. The Overman is the answer to the death of God. He doesn't need divine commandments. He writes his own law. Nietzsche wrote, "Man is something that shall be overcome." It was a radical, poetic challenge to humanity. Can you become more than you are? But Nietzsche knew that most people would not rise to the challenge. Instead, they would cling to safety, comfort, and mediocrity. He called these people the last men, the mass of society content with shallow pleasures and herd morality. Chapter 4. Eternal Return and the Descent into Madness. Nietzsche's ideas grew more daring. His health was rapidly crumbling. He was writing feverishly, producing philosophical works at a pace that mirrored his deteriorating body. Yet in the midst of his solitude and illness, he conceived one of his most haunting and powerful thoughts: the eternal return. In his book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche asks, what if a demon were to creep after you one night and say, "This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more. Would you throw yourself down and gnash your teeth, or would you say, 'You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine'?" The eternal return is a thought experiment. What if you had to live your exact life over and over again forever? Every joy, every pain, every failure, every moment. Would you embrace it or despair? This idea is not about cosmology. It's a test of your attitude toward life. If you live in such a way that you would joyfully live the same life again eternally, then you are truly affirming life. You are truly alive. But Nietzsche's own life was growing unbearable. Despite writing masterpieces like Beyond Good and Evil, On the Genealogy of Morality, and the prophetic Twilight of the Idols, he was almost completely ignored. In his lifetime, his books sold poorly. He lived in near poverty, suffering breakdowns and hallucinations. And then, in early January 1889, in the streets of Turin, something snapped. The story is now legend. Nietzsche saw a horse being whipped by its owner. Horrified, he ran to the horse, threw his arms around its neck, and collapsed in tears. Afterward, he never recovered. His mind dissolved into madness. He began signing his letters as Dionysus, the Crucified, and sometimes Nietzsche Caesar. He claimed to be God, Napoleon, and the inventor of the world. He was only 44 years old. For the final 11 years of his life, Friedrich Nietzsche lived in a state of total mental collapse, first in a psychiatric clinic and later under the care of his mother and sister. He could no longer write. He could no longer think as he once had. The brilliant, lonely philosopher who challenged the very foundations of morality and truth was now a silent shadow of himself. Chapter 5. The Legacy. How Nietzsche Changed the World. When Friedrich Nietzsche died on August 25, 1900, he was unknown, misunderstood, and dismissed. He never saw the waves of impact his ideas would unleash. But over the next century, Nietzsche's voice would grow louder, reaching into the core of Western thought and changing the course of philosophy, psychology, art, and politics.